Hey, welcome to Structures, the place for creatives to share the journey of life and sound. And I appreciate all of you tuning in for Double Digits, episode number 10. It's happening today with nedogled, known as nedogled on Instagram. It's Alexander. Hello, how are you doing today, brother?
Hey man, doing great. Thanks for having me, and congrats on the big number 10.
Thank you very much. And I'm just going to go ahead and share the mishap just so people can laugh. We were like 10, 15 minutes in, and I hit pause because someone pulled up to ask me a question next to my car, and I forgot to unpause it, so we're starting over. So, whenever you hear nice, polished productions, sometimes it's not always as it seems. People fuck up, things happen, so just go with the flow. And I got to thank Alexander here for being cool about it and rewinding and starting over. So, thanks, Alexander, and let's just take it from there. Tell everybody where you're located at in the world and about your amazing off-grid studio.
Sure, man. So I'm located in Serbia, and about 200 kilometers from Belgrade. I'm out here deep in the woods, living off grid, about 10 kilometers or 6 miles away from the closest town. When I say off grid, I mean like we don't have we're not connected to power lines, and we don't not connected to like a water grid. So we collect our own rainwater. I got a solar powered system here and like a petrol generator as a backup. And that's where I got my that's where I live. Basically we've been living here for the past 8 years, and I put together a little Dallas music studio in the corner of my home office.
That's beautiful. And if you don't know Nedo Gled, check him out on Instagram and check out his photos of his studio and his home. It's beautiful, and I love it. I'm into that stuff too, and he and I actually enjoy talking about it. So it's a lot of fun. I'm glad to have you on here today, and very grateful for you to show up. I should have told you that first, but thanks so much.
No, thanks for having me, man.
Let's tell a little bit about your studio, because I know other people that are really interested in this stuff. So maybe and I know needs vary for person to person, but just a general idea of your setup and how long it took you to build it up with your panels, battery bank, and such.
Yeah. So I think I started this whole Dallas thing in 2019. Start off with a innovation circuit. Like that was like the first thing I got. Basically starting off from scratch after selling off all my instruments previously, and built it up from there. Just a lot of trial and error, trying to figure out what works for me, what sort of direction I want to take. And what I've ended up with is I've got a Tascam Model 12 multi-track recorder, which is sort of the base for the mixing and the recording. I've got digital keys, which is my master sequencer, main polysynth and bass synth. And then I've got a couple of other things sprinkled in, like an analog synth, guitar with a multi effects, and a drum machine. And I'll be adding a sampler too
Oh,
soon.
nice.
So yeah. I had the Poly tracker, and it just didn't really work out for my flow. But I think I'll be getting the Roland SP for Mark II pretty soon, and I think that's gonna be featured pretty well on my next album, I think.
Good, man. That's awesome. You mentioned your guitar, and I'd love for
Yeah.
you to share a little bit about that, because it's a beautiful instrument.
Yeah. Funny thing about the guitar, like I used to play the drums, and I love doing sound design on synths. So those are sort of like my main things. And I have a lot of guitarist friends, who would come and visit. And I thought, hey, I'll just get a cheap guitar that's just gonna sit in the corner for them to play, so we can jam together, like when they visit. And so I got like a cheap Epiphone SG, and since I got it, like I haven't basically stopped playing guitar. Just totally got hooked on that. So added that to my arsenal, and pretty soon, I saw there was a local builder that I was interested in headless guitars.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I just thought like it made a lot of sense, like ergonomically. Like they look weird. That's for sure. Like for someone who's used to traditional guitar shapes, but it made a lot of sense. And I got in touch with like a local builder who I just found on Instagram, and we kicked it off from there. Like great guy. I mean, really does masterful work. And the guitar he made was made from entirely local wood, so that was really fun, the whole process. And then obviously obviously, getting the guitar and playing it, and I've had it for the past, I think, year and a half or so, and it's just been a whole lot of fun.
It is a beautiful instrument, and I encourage people to check it out. I think you have a piece of it on YouTube, don't you? A video of it.
Yeah, yeah, I got a video of like the whole, all the details about the guitar, a link to the builder, and like even like a checklist if you wanna, order your own custom guitar, just sort of things to consider to choose.
Excuse me. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I want to come back to the YouTube stuff, but I want people to get to know you a little bit more first. Can we go back to your earlier years and when you started listening and getting real curious into music and starting to create your own?
Yeah, yeah, sure, man. I mean, for me, it started with listening way before I started playing music. So, since I was a kid, since as long as I can remember, my dad was playing, records for us at home. So like Pink Floyd, Dire Straits, Talking Heads, and I sort of grew up with that stuff. And then when I got older, I moved on to the Beatles, to Nirvana, The Prodigy, and then just went on from there. And when I was in like my late teens, or at about 20 or so, I got really into the local psychedelic trance scene. So we were a crew of like 5 or 6 people, and we started organizing parties here. So we had like New Year's parties, and then also summer parties, like out in the wild. We just get a generator, a sound system, and a couple hundred people would show up. And this is when I started DJing and sort of getting a good idea of taking it, from a from a listener to somebody who can really feel how other people experience music, like when you play it for them, and
Yeah.
how they react.
From a listener to a practitioner.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But the first instrument I played were the drums. So I got that when I was 19. I got a drum kit, very poorly positioned in an apartment in Belgrade. So that didn't really go down so well with my neighbors. And it didn't really last that long. So
Yeah. It
so I
probably
didn't really
took
get
up
into drumming.
almost a whole bedroom too, huh?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, very little space, very
Yeah.
tight. I couldn't, there was barely any space for like a ride cymbal.
Yeah.
Super cramped.
So that
But
didn't last too long
yeah.
in the apartment, you said?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That didn't last too long, and I was mostly still doing the DJing stuff and being really in the psychedelic trance scene, and we even had a couple of releases at that time. It wasn't my music at that point, but then I moved. This was all in Belgrade. Then I moved to Qatar, and at that point I was living in a house, so I was able to get a drum kit and sort of had a lot more space and a lot less people to annoy around me, and that's when really,
Yeah.
well, got into drumming, but it was like solo drumming. I never been in a band, which is interesting because like I've always been doing kind of my thing,
Yeah.
and I would play the drums, record that, and just play the synth on top of that. But I wasn't really releasing music up until the first couple of releases I made were in 2014. At that point, I was working in a DAW. I got my first like hardware synth, which was a little Waldorf Pulse 2.
Hmm.
I made a keyboard interface and made a couple of songs with that. But like I never really gelled with the DAW workflow.
Yeah.
I've always been working at the computer, and even today. So when I'm done with the mouse and keyboard, I want to be done with it for the day. I don't want to translate that into my creative process.
Yeah, I can
So
understand that.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people do amazing stuff, with just a laptop and a pair of headphones, but it's not something that really worked for me. So it wasn't until like this sort of like Dallas wave started up in the past couple of years that I really felt like this is it. This is what I've been looking for. This is the setup that I need.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know I'm drawn to it for like from the opposite end of the spectrum because I don't work on computers and I've basically I can't say never, but almost have never had a laptop or a computer.
Hmm.
It didn't grow up with one. Like they're foreign to me, so it's like my brain makes more sense of having hardware, you know. So it's like
Yeah,
two
absolutely. I
different,
mean,
yeah, two different paths to the Dallas environment, I guess.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, it makes sense for me. And these instruments, they're made to be used in like this specific way. Like even if you got a digital synth, you still have the hardware for it, which is, the perfect interface for that synth. So like I'm using the digital keys, and it's just so perfectly laid out,
Yeah, yeah,
both for sound design, for sequencing and everything. And if you want to do that on a mouse and keyboard and a MIDI controller, like you could do the same thing, but it's gonna take you a lot longer, and you'll be breaking, that flow quite a bit. Now, I'm saying people do it
yeah.
easily, but for me, like just this hardware thing was exactly this whole tactile aspect of it is what was missing for me.
Yeah, I've always been a very hands-on kind of person in everything I
Hmm.
do. I've worked skilled trades, worked with my hands all my life, and it's just so much more satisfying and intuitive to have my hands on something rather than uh, reading a screen. And maybe
Yeah,
someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, if you're on a DAW, I don't think you can turn a frequency and envelope knob at the same time or any. You know what I'm saying? Like, can you only do one thing at a
yeah.
time?
Well, yeah. No, if I think if you set it up with a MIDI controller, you'll be able to
Oh
do
yeah,
that. But
yeah. I
even like
guess
the
you
whole
could with the
setup
MIDI. Yeah,
process.
yeah,
Yeah, but like touching up on that, like even the whole setup process is, like I set it up, I install my interface, I connect my monitors, I connect my controller, and then it works, for like a month, and then something gets updated and breaks things, and then
yeah.
start from scratch. Are the drivers working, like a new version of the operating system, etc. And I've had that happen quite a bit, so it really kills the flow, like when you have to troubleshoot before you can even get to making music. And especially, like for me, it's a hobby and it's something that I do in my free time. So the little time I have, I want to spend it on just flipping those switches on and just start making the music. I don't really want to do any tech support for my studio.
No, definitely. I definitely understand that. And you touched on something that's big for me consciously, and it's big for other people as well, even if they don't realize it. I think is the flow, the
Mhm.
workflow,
Yeah,
and not getting
yeah.
hung up. So beyond the DAW versus DAWless, what are some of your personal habits or rituals or what have you that to help you get in the flow of creating?
For me, it will be like I have very little time to spend on making music, which is basically at night. So I got my 9 p.m. slot when my family is in bed and everything is quiet, and I know there won't be any disturbances. So,
Hmm.
and I mean it's 9 p.m. If I've been at work, if I've been to the gym, if I've been building something outside, I'm pretty tired. But
Yeah, yeah,
I don't let that stop me. I just go and I sit down, and something is bound to happen. Like I'll spend an hour and a half there. Some sessions are super productive. Some sessions are just productive. But I've never had an unproductive session. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. And
So I don't really, yeah.
by productive, do you mean that
Like
it's
I do
always
something new.
towards a goal or productive? Like a lot of times when I play, it's literally just to kind of balance out my brain and body and heart from the day. You know what I mean? Like a little self therapy. Like, do you do that kind of stuff too, or does that just happen
Yeah, yeah,
anyway, like naturally?
yeah. That happens naturally usually, but I guess I'm sort of more like project driven. Like
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
always got like a song or a release that I'm working on, and then something that's sort of driving me forward. So, what I mean by productive, I would say, I've maybe designed a new sound, put together like a new sequence,
Mm,
or just kind of gotten a bit better at playing the guitar or something like that. Which and I'm comparing that to doing nothing, like maybe just sitting on the couch or watching a movie or something. That's
exactly.
definitely not productive towards my
Exactly.
music making hobby.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I just sort of made that shift. I don't want to be a passive consumer at this time slot that I have. I want to be a producer at this point. Make something new, get creative. Or just sit there and that's another thing with with being Dallas. There's nothing else to do there. There's no internet browser I can open up. There's
Right.
no
Right.
movie I can put on.
Right.
It's just me and my instruments, and something cool is bound to happen.
Yeah, and all I could do is turn it on and start going. Yeah,
Yeah,
and you really,
yeah,
yeah, you really just made me happy talking about that. That the productive in the sense of, if nothing else, you're not being a passive consumer sitting on the couch watching
yeah.
TV or whatever. That is like that's big to me because I often question myself about how am I spending my time or how am I choosing to spend the next hour, or like you said, the priority of you have your 9 p.m. slot. You know, even if you
Yeah,
maybe not even have a game plan, but you get off your ass and you go in there and then something happens. So it's all about giving
exactly.
yourself the opportunity, you know, and not being for me, I just can only speak for me, but not let myself be drawn into that consumerism mentality in today's world where just everything's coming at you and, you know, you don't even need it. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? You don't.
Yeah, it just made that way. And like everybody's talking about the latest like Netflix show. And I've started watching. I used to watch a lot of these shows, like Breaking Bad and whatever it was at that point, The Wire, and they were good shows and everything. But like now, I feel like everything is speeding up. Like people are binge watching
Yeah.
TV shows and movies, and I'm feeling like it's just moving way too fast to be something that I'm internalizing, something that I'm learning from. And
Yeah.
so I just completely quit, TV shows and basically most movies, I think, in the past 3 years. And I've gotten a whole lot more creative and productive.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah. And by the way, I just thought of something I want to clarify. Uh, I'm not knocking the shows or movies because it's an art form and there's a lot of great stuff. I've seen some great
Yeah,
stuff, but I think you and I are undoubtedly we're talking from the perspective of creators ourselves. We're artists ourselves. We're
exactly.
not like you said the consumer of the art as some people are. They aren't artists, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And,
They're the
and I
things,
mean,
but we do art, so we have to make that time, that
exactly.
opportunity. Yeah, yeah. No, I love it, and I do the same thing. Uh, I am on YouTube, uh, probably more than I need to be, but I don't really watch a lot of movies or TV anymore. Just very occasionally, and
Hmm.
I try to put that time into working on the podcast or making some music, and when I have time like that, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I didn't mean to get on going down that rabbit hole of that, but it's just it's a good topic I like, and it's like uh, important to me.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, and I'm not judging anyone. I mean, I've spent hours, weeks, months watching TV shows, movies, playing games, especially like when I was younger. So I'm not knocking anyone that's doing that. It's just not something
Yeah,
that's worked out for me.
right,
And
right.
another thing to add is, it might be a source of inspiration for a lot of people. They would watch a movie and then be inspired to make some music based on that or get inspired by that.
Sure,
For
sure.
me, I just have different sources of inspiration, like, and as I think, in my case, that would be just living out here in nature and just seeing, the seasons change and being under the influence of the seasons, like you get really humble,
Yes.
when you have to walk like 500 meters through snow to just to get to the car to drive my kid to kindergarten. And
Yeah.
and those are sort of experiences that I kind of, draw from and put into my music.
Yes. I can relate from when I lived out in the woods off grid as well some years ago, and and it's a very stark contrast to that hurried pace you were mentioning of the television programming and society has for us. It's a very different pace
Yeah,
when you're more in tune with the seasons, and you know some people are worried about if the satellite recorded their TV show, and I'm worried about like did the creek swell too high after that rain? You know,
exactly.
you know what I mean? Like,
Exactly, man.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's totally different, man. Yeah, it's wild. I'd love to hear on in the comments or message me or message Alexander. I'd love to hear if anyone else out there listening is experiencing or has experienced life like that in a more natural, slower pace with uh, with the ups and downs of nature. You know, I mean, even in the city, I guess sometimes it's unavoidable. Storms and things happen, but yeah, I love it. And there's another rabbit trail. I'm sorry, I keep getting you off, man.
No, it's all good. Let's go.
Yeah, well, okay, where are we gonna go? We're talking about
Uh,
being inspired and making time for art. Um, okay, so other than making sure you have the time slot, is there anything else you like to do to put yourself in the zone, or do you just get there by just starting, just doing it?
just starting. I mean, that's how, that's what I'm trying for. Sometimes, well, before, not anymore, but I would have a drink before, or I would have a smoke before. But I felt like, I don't need crutches sort of for this. It's
Right,
it's
right.
interesting. It's fun to do it that way as well. but let's see what I can do, completely sober, and let's just see what comes out that way, and let's just make it a routine into, just like approaching it completely as myself. It's kind of
Yeah.
hard to explain, to describe, but I think a lot of musicians will relate. There's these two sides of, making music when you're under the influence of something, or when you're just like bone dry going into it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the two very different worlds. And I do a bit of both, but I try to I try to keep it sober these days.
Yeah. I I understand what you mean, man, for sure. And it's the more I knew we had a few things in common, but the more you explain where you're at in your artistic journey right now, I just find more and more things that I relate to you with, and that's just really cool, man. Because I've
Yeah.
same way. Actually I shared it on the last interview, which I'm working on that episode now. So I'll tell you, and the listeners are hearing it again, but I'll tell you, Alexander, that it started again for me when I quit drinking. And I don't judge anyone for what they
Mm-hmm.
do, but I had to make a healthy choice for me. I had to stop, and when I did, that's when I got back into music, and it was
Yeah.
like a whole new experience. Just experiencing life in a different way, and then learning more about my creativity and about being an artist, uh, and yeah, and now it's like it's just like I said, two different worlds, and
Oh yeah, absolutely, man.
yeah, and that's only been a few years now. Like I think later this year will be 6 years sober. So
Oh, cool, man. Wow,
yeah.
congrats.
Thanks a
Well
lot.
done.
Thanks, man. So yeah, and it's just like a very different experience. Trying to tune into that flow and that sound that wants to come out. I feel like in some ways I can do it better. You know. And
Yeah,
honestly, I didn't.
yeah.
I hardly played music when I was drinking. I did it much earlier as a teen, uh,
Hmm.
when I was partying and stuff. But then I quit because my extracurriculars got too intense. But
Exactly, man. Yeah, I mean, well, at one point we get to a certain age, and we have kids, and we've got all sorts of obligations, and it just starts taking a toll.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So do you? I was curious about because I love hearing from different artists and their process and how they approach things because there's not everyone's the same by any means. So when you go into a song idea, do you uh,
Mhm.
have a certain sound in your mind, or do you have a certain melody in your mind? Like what kind of starts it? I know it happens when you start playing your instruments, but what kind of comes up first for you often?
Well, I play around basically. So I got two or three approaches here. One would be just like noodling on my guitar and maybe practicing like a new technique, like maybe hybrid picking or like tremolo picking. And just through that practice, I don't want to practice something. I want to make up my own practice. You know what I mean? So
Right,
I would
right.
like invent my own practices, and because I want it to be interesting as well. And as I do that, I sort of come up with new riffs, new melodies. That's one source. Another would be like trying to learn my instrument a bit more, like maybe the Dreadbox Typhon or the digital keys, and just sort of playing with sounds until I get like a really cool sound that I really like. And then I work on either a chord progression for it, some pads, or like a melody. So yeah, basically how it goes is I just play around, noodle around until I find something that really sort of picks me up and takes me away. And
Gotcha.
that's the initiation for each of my songs. That's how it all starts. Either like a riff, a cool sound on a synth, or like a rhythm. Uh,
Yeah.
Although it's mostly been synth sounds and like guitar riffs lately.
I think that's wonderful because it makes it seem like you're open to the path, whatever it may be. You're open to follow the sound.
Exactly.
Instead of being locked into something so hardcore that it you either make it and it's not as good as you thought, or you can't even find that exact thing in your head anyway. You kind of
Yeah, yeah. But I've
letting
had
the
those
magic
situations.
reveal itself to you.
Exactly, exactly. But I've had those situations like I would go in with a goal, with a purpose, and I'm gonna make this sound, or I wanna play a riff that's kind of like this. And when I start it, it usually just takes me a different direction, and I just have to say, okay, I have to let go of the initial idea and just go with this other thing that sort of came up unexpectedly. But I don't think I've ever actually delivered on a goal that I set, like it never worked out exactly as I planned. Never, never. So yeah, that definitely I'm very flexible about it. And in the end, what I'm really looking for is something that, making something that makes me feel a certain way, like
Yeah,
if it's a
yeah,
sound or if it's a riff, and that's my end goal basically. Everything else are just sort of tools how to get that.
yeah. Well, are you working on any more material right currently, or?
So like right now I'm on a break, so I just sort of took a break from my so yeah, basically I released my album in December 20 last year, 2023. And since then I'm very project based, so basically I'm always working on like a sort of small or medium sized project, so like either an EP or an album, or in this case, once I finished the album, I thought, hey, I'll get into YouTube. So I did like 6 months of weekly YouTube videos, and during that time there was absolutely no time to really finish songs. I would still like play the guitar, play with some sound. So
Mm-hmm.
I got a lot of ideas collected right now that I put together, during my YouTube stint.
Yeah,
And now I'm basically on like a like a 1 month break because I'm always doing something. And I thought, hey, let's just like not do anything for like a month. I'll
yeah.
spend more time outdoors and just let the YouTube thing sort of end, have a break, and then start working on a new album. So I think in July I'll start working on new material, and it's going to be a new album. I already have a lot of ideas about that, but let's see what happens.
Well, I look forward to hearing what comes of it. And if anyone listening hasn't heard your music, you got some stuff on Bandcamp, and it's good. I love it.
Yeah,
The first time I heard
thanks, man.
yeah, you're welcome. The first time I heard the album, I forgot. I'm sorry. What's the title of the album?
The album is Spiritwood, but
Yeah, yeah.
before that, I got that EP, Eye of the Wild. Yeah,
Eye of the Wild. That's the one I was thinking of because
yeah.
I remember being at work, and I bought the album and I was listening to it and I was like jamming. People were looking at me because I'm in my own world like rocking over here, and I'm
Nice, man.
and
Yeah.
I told my friend, I was like, this shit is like rock and roll from the future. That's what I said. It
Nice,
sound like
man.
rock
Yeah,
and roll from the
yeah.
future. Yeah, so check it out. It is good stuff. So I like
Man,
to.
man, I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, I love your stuff, and I love. It's funny because most of the music I listen to nowadays is from people I meet because it adds a whole nother
Like, same here.
dynamic. Yeah, because it's rather than picking a style and sometimes you're in a mood for a style, but rather than like being like, oh, I'm a punk rock guy or I'm a house guy or what, I'm a guy that loves to
Hmm.
hear what my friends make. You know what I mean?
Exactly, man. I mean, like we live in this incredible time where you can actually, meet the people who are making the music. And I don't care, if they're packing stadiums or if they're just hobby musicians. I
Yeah,
want to see the emotion that went into it, and who this person is and how it all ties together. And I think it's sort of like I, well, like you could say that music got commodified with the whole streaming thing, where people are just
right.
like listening to song after song without any idea of like who even the artist is
Yeah,
or anything about it. And I'm really, and as that's becoming more and more mainstream, or already is mainstream, I'm sort of going the exact opposite direction. I'm like, I really want to know who's making
yeah, yeah. Me
this
too.
music. I check them out, on Instagram and everything. And the size of the band doesn't really the popularity of the band doesn't really matter for me. But
No.
one pattern that I've noticed in the past couple of years is that the most popular bands, like even in like niche genres, like I don't know, like doom metal, black metal, and
Hmm.
stuff like that, like the most popular artists are usually like how should I say this? Like they're delivering almost like a product. Like you would expect
Right.
what it's supposed to sound like. Like it does fit a certain genre. It's well produced and all of this, but it's just missing that sort of grit, from
Yeah.
the fringe. You know what I mean? Like something fresh that kind of breaks the mold of it.
But I
I
think
mean, I'm
that's why
generalizing
they're
here.
probably most successful in their genre, though, is because that they fit so well in that, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they deliver on the expectations of
Yeah,
the fans,
exactly.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's just a different style
yeah,
of art. Yeah, but I totally know what you mean. And I just like getting to know people. And it doesn't bother me a bit when someone does something totally different than what they used to do, because I love seeing the artistic evolution of someone's creativity, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I love when people take like two different genres and just like smash them together, and it sounds completely fresh. You know,
Yeah.
it's what I like the most, I think.
Just yesterday, I was thinking of, because I got a lot on my plate right now, but one day I would love to start recording some albums, and just yesterday I was thinking, how fun would it be to record an album like a drone album, for example, and then the next one just totally different style, just something else I like to do, you know?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
wouldn't,
exactly.
you know what I
Just
mean?
what you
I
feel like.
wouldn't be a, fill in the blank certain genre artist. I would just be me, and I just do whatever I want. This album is this style, and this album is a totally different kind of music.
Exactly, exactly. But you got to be pretty open for that. Like you got to be really, and
Yeah,
I bet you are,
yeah,
and you just like, let's see where inspiration comes from and let's see where it takes me.
yeah, yeah. And I think it comes from a place of being very, like you said, open and not judgmental in any way of yourself or having preconceived notions, but just allowing, like you mentioned, it might be a melody or it might be a synth sound, but allowing whatever that takes to trigger and pull you into that flow and just tune into whatever the
Exactly.
universe wants to bring through you as an artist. So it may be salsa or it may be black metal, you know. You
Yeah, yeah,
know?
yeah.
But you mentioned your YouTube experience that you recently stopped, at least for now, to take a break. And
Mhm.
I wanted to touch on that because that's something that a lot of us are dabbling in or have been doing now for some time. What was your experience like with that, and when did you start your regular videos?
Sure. So, I mean, like I got this thing, if I'm consuming something for a prolonged period of time, at some point I want to start doing it myself. So, if I'm
Absolutely.
listening to a lot of albums, I'm like, hey, I want to make an album. If I'm
Yeah.
reading like a lot of books, I want to write a book. And so it was the same thing about YouTube. Like you mentioned earlier, you spend a lot of time on YouTube. I do too. I don't watch TV and TV shows, but admittedly, yeah, a lot of time on YouTube. And at one point, I'm like, hey, I wanna give this a go. So it was an interesting winter project for me, and I sort of the way I approach things, I first plan it all out, in
Hmm.
detail, as much as I can for most of my projects. So I've got like a month or two of a planning phase before I even sort of do anything. So I did a lot of like research of how it's supposed to be done on YouTube, and like people would say, you have to be consistent, and you don't have to post that often. You just have to post once a week.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
once a week, man. that
That is often to make a
that's
good
pretty
video.
damn often.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but I thought, all right, let's give it a go. But what I did was I recorded the first four episodes, like in advance, so that I
Hmm.
would just have this buffer instead of having this, rat race,
Yeah. Yeah.
having to complete a video every week. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was like a massive learning process for everything because uh, topic research, recording myself, which I've never really enjoyed doing, recording myself or speaking like that. But I found this to be quite fun. And then obviously, editing, video editing, audio editing, putting it all together.
Hmm.
Different like codecs things. So like a huge sort of learning opportunity. It was fun, but it was intense. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
and they weren't very long videos. Like my average video is about 8 or 9 minutes long, but it's incredible how much work is needed behind the scenes to produce something that I think other people will enjoy. Simply because it's not something that I've seen elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And plus, like nowadays, it's not the early days of YouTube where like any home video style you just throw up there. You can. There's nothing wrong with that. But
Yeah,
there's such a higher level of production, at least possibility, that
yeah.
it's there's no rules at all. Don't get me wrong, but like you, I'm very interested in upping my game. I think your stuff is great. I've watched a lot of your videos that you
Thanks,
were
man.
doing, and just the your delivery and the visual, the look of it, it's obvious that you put your work into it, and it looks good, and that's something I would like to evolve into a better production level, I guess you can call it that myself. But
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah.
I'm
I mean,
again.
the way,
Go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, the way I went about, yeah, as you mentioned, you can get the production, really high, but I got it to as far as I'm comfortable with doing, but also like this is the sort of video that I would like to watch myself. So I mean,
Exactly.
being a musician, I'm very, very, I want the audio to sound good.
Right.
It
Right.
it just I when I hear like a boomy mic in a room, it just sort of interferes with the whole process for me. So but then on the other hand, like I didn't have a lot of graphics, a lot of B-roll, a lot of like jump cut editing, stuff that's kind of popular in some niches of YouTube because that's not the sort of stuff I enjoy watching myself. Everything that I make, basically, even like my music and the videos, it's something that I would enjoy consuming. So, and it's really cool when other people like it because then I've definitely found a person that we've got a lot in common with, and then you sort of build a relationship from that, and I've really found that probably to be the most enjoyable part. Like meeting people like you and everybody else that I've connected to on Instagram and YouTube, and just sort of relating, especially like talking about dollars gear and like the whole process. It's been great.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. I agree with you. The best part is meeting the people. And that was
Yeah.
a big inspiration to start this project. This podcast was just to get to know my friends better, and some new friends too, but get to know people better. But also it's a chance to let like the listeners, any fan or listener, get to know everyone better too. And even if
Yeah.
someone's a little more introverted online and doesn't get out there as much, maybe they'll see a interview with an artist they like, so now boom, they're getting to know you better. So because I
Exactly. And there's the
yeah,
interaction.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, where were we going? Because I was gonna say that that's the planning. That's obviously that's very good, and it paid off for you. And this is another example of me coming at it from the opposite end of the spectrum, just like we had the opposite computer, example.
Yeah.
But I try to plan. Like, I had this podcast idea like probably 2 years before I started it, and
Hmm.
I didn't get serious about it. It was just an idea. But then about a year before I started it, I was like, okay, let me really start figuring this out. And I kind of go off and on, back and forth between life stuff and this. But the more I tried to learn, the more it would just make my head spin. So finally, I was like, fuck this. I'm just gonna schedule an interview and jump in and do it.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
everyone is gonna see between the podcast production quality and the YouTube stuff, everyone can just watch the growth and evolution because I'm a very hands-on learner. I even have trouble reading sometimes. Like I can read, but it's like I'll read a whole page and like, wait, what the hell did I just read? And I go back and read it again. So it's like I just
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
get my
Yeah.
hands
Happens to me
dirty,
too.
and I tried the planning thing. It
No,
just
that's true.
didn't work for me. So, but that's another example. Like, people don't get down. Like, find the way that works for you. Go for it because sky's the limit. Like, you can do whatever you want to do. And there's no prescribed way you have to do it. It's just art. It's just for fun
Absolutely.
or to express yourself or tell a message. So do it in whatever way works for you. That's what I like to tell people, and that's a cool
Exactly.
thing that came up in that conversation. That way, with yeah, how the differences.
Yeah, and I mean everybody has their own. Like I could have spent like a month or two planning, but I could have spent like 4 months planning, and maybe somebody does and does a really good job at it. But like even I planned to the point where I was confident enough to start, I guess. And even if you watch, like my first videos and the last couple of videos, there's a huge difference
Hmm.
in basically in the quality of everything. I would say, like looking at it from my perspective. So yeah, I mean, but it's important to just start basically at some point. Like
I agree. Just start.
that's what it comes down to. Yeah.
Yeah. No matter how prepared or planned you are, just do it. Just like your 9 p.m. music slot. Just go. Like,
Yeah.
your next album will never come out if you don't ever make it out there at 9 p.m. You know?
Exactly, exactly. And there's no choice about, like that's what the time is for.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got to be at work at some point, and I'll be at the studio at some point. And it does, like to my wife, it sounds weird because like she's also an artist and she makes a lot of stuff like with her hands,
Hmm.
and she goes much more with the flow. Like she would feel it, and then she would make like a bunch of stuff in like a 2 or 3 hour span.
Yeah.
um and that's her approach and it works for her, but for me, like if I wait for inspiration to come, I'll be waiting a very long time before I make my first song.
Hope you have a snack.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you mentioned your wife's an artist. Does she have a place online that you want to promote for her?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I'll give you the link, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you can maybe put it in the description.
I sure will. I'll do that. I would love to do that. Yeah. So how
Yeah, and
long?
she made actually for my last album.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah, sorry. So yeah, for my last album, she made like these little clay mushroom houses that I'm sort of like selling with the album. So we sort of kind of try to keep it in the family.
Yeah. Oh, that's a cool collaboration. Like art
Yeah, yeah.
with the music and it's from you guys together. That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, because I thought about like printing CDs, but I'm like, I loved CDs when I was growing up, but that time has passed,
Yeah.
and there's no point if somebody's gonna buy a CD and just sort of hold on to it and not really play it even, because very few people even have CD players anymore. So I thought like this would be cool, still have something physical and just get that digital download as well.
And there's something special about it too, with it being something that was handmade from your home, from the place that the music was created. Uh,
Yeah,
I just think that's really cool because you're sending that energy, you know, out there to that
yeah, and I
person.
mean it's the whole
Yeah,
story. Yeah, and it's the whole source of inspiration for us. Living here, being close, with nature, and that inspires the music and all the art that we make. And I'm thinking, let's bring it out to the world. Let's share this sort of story in very different ways.
yeah, yeah. And I, a little bit back to process. I wanted to ask you, what did you do when even though you're trying what you normally do and normally works for you, what do you do when you hit like a big roadblock and just like you're stuck? And can you give an example
Uh,
of a big challenge you had like that?
it will usually be how to get a song to a point where I'm happy with it,
Yeah.
and like it's kind of tough to tell like when a song is done, but I definitely have that feeling. It may not be the perfect thing, it may not, the chord progressions might not be ideal, but I have a feel for it like when it's done. So what really helps me when I hit a roadblock, so as I mentioned earlier, I would start with either like the synth sounds or the or like a guitar riff or a melody or something like that, and that's just the first baby steps towards getting like a full song done in my case. And what helped me is having a story to every song. Basically, it's
Mm.
something like this song is telling an actual story of something that happened, something that I've perceived or experienced, and that's usually what I put in the song name as well. Like like Swamp Sentience, Woodworm Guru. There's
Yeah.
always a
Yeah.
backstory to it. Like you won't be able to tell it, but that's something that always helps me sort of finish the song. And like from a technical level, music theory helps quite a bit. I would get you know a chord progression going or a melody going or something like that, and then where do I take it from there? I would usually look up what scale am I in, and what scale do I want to be in? What options do I have to
Yeah.
to sort of carry on the emotion? Like, do I want to take it up higher, take it lower? And some music theory has definitely helped me. That's not something that I used to have, and I really got serious about it. I would say at about 2014, 15, where I started, reading a bunch of books on music theory, music production, all this, and it really did help me.
That's good. That's good advice. That's something I'm very uneducated in music. That's something I would benefit from
Man,
studying for sure.
I was afraid of it for like 10, 15 years, like I would see like that sheet music. I'm like, what the hell is this? Is just
Yeah.
an alien language to me, just doesn't work for me. But there are cool books out there. There are even like cool YouTube videos out there that really simplify the process and tell it from a different angle instead of like the typical classical music approach, which may not be relevant to a lot of fringe musicians these days, I think.
Right. Right. And it's I like how you joked about it looking like a foreign language, but dude, what if it really is a alien language? You said alien, didn't you? That's
Yeah, yeah,
what if it
it
really
basically
is?
could be. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
I like to think far out like that sometimes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, technically, an alien would just learn that, and then they would be able to communicate to us through music without knowing any other sort of spoken Earth language.
True. Now, that was a good example of how to approach a roadblock when you're in the studio. Do you have maybe you don't, but do you have a point in your life where you had just like a personal like or something that was like holding you back, even if it's just because of your circumstances, you literally just weren't able to have instruments or something had you depressed, or like did you have any major life obstacle, or were you always able to connect with that music making flow?
Oof, well, no, I mean, I've had a lot of life obstacles, I would say, like growing up in Serbia, and then, also, we had wars going on around, my city was bombed in 99 for like
Mm.
for 3 months. So there was a lot of, like I suppose crisis was a normal state growing up for me, I think, in my teens especially. But I don't know, like you just kind of push through it and look ahead. In terms of how it stopped me from making like music for me has always been something magical, man.
Yeah.
Like even today, I get into my studio, I fire up the instruments and I see all of these lights blinking. Like to me, it's still magic. Pressing these keys and these crazy sounds start coming out. It's magical and just takes me away, to a very different place. Even after all these years, like releasing an album, a couple of EPs, and all of this, like I still find it very magical. Um, I don't know if I can relate it to like a specific roadblock in my past.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it sounds like it was just a part of your life for a while, hardship and
Mhm.
crisis. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, but yeah, definitely. I mean, there were a lot of challenges, and I think, but once I started getting, like after the first bit of success, whatever it was, like when I was a kid, which was I think it was like backpacking around, South America and just sort of figuring things out on my own, and uh, learning a new language in a completely different
Yeah.
environment compared to where I grew up in. Like that sort of I use that as fuel, for like the next success, in my life. And so every time I do something cool, I'm like, okay, that was cool. Let's go for the next thing. And like one thing leads to another. And I built my own house here where we live. Uh, then I started writing books, then music, then putting on YouTube. So I'm always like looking, okay, you got some like be thankful for what you've done and use that as fuel to sort of
Yeah.
get the next thing done.
Right. Right. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Because once you start, once you do the first thing, and then you get your head around the idea that everything is just a thing, then you can do anything.
Exactly.
You,
Exactly. But the first thing is tough, man. It was tough
yeah.
for me. It's
Yeah.
tough for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well,
That's
just
the toughest one. Yeah.
like for example, I was telling you about starting the podcast. Like, I couldn't get started. I had to just do it. Now I'm still in the process of
Exactly.
figuring it all out. But once I took that first step and scheduled my first interview, dude, I was booked. I think I did 2 months straight, weekly, and then like you mentioned for yourself, I was
Nice.
like, okay, I'm going to take a break and just relax. And I think I gave myself 1 or 2 weeks off, but now I'm back to recording, and I'm still going to release some at a natural pace. I'm not overly concerned about hitting every week, but yeah, it's all about taking the
Yeah.
first step, man, for sure. So anyone out there, like, don't be afraid. Just do it. Just take the step in whatever
Yeah. Do it.
project or thing you're interested in. Just go for it.
Yeah, it's like a muscle, really, like stepping out of your comfort zone. The more often you do it, just the easier it gets, I think.
I agree. I think it's easier. And would you think that perhaps it's almost it's rewiring our brain in a sense that when you step out and do something and it works, it's like reprogramming that it goes from fear to possibility. You know?
Yeah, yeah, that's one aspect of it. If it works in like in the way you want it to, but
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
it doesn't work. And even if it doesn't work, hey, like I'm still alive. I might have failed, but I've definitely learned a lot. I've learned a lot more than not doing anything.
yeah, yeah.
So once you figure out that there's really not that much to be afraid of, uh, that's very liberating.
It really is. It really is. And it's the way you were is much like I tell people that are friends or family if they're having a rough day or going through something. I always tell them like you're gonna make it because like you've made it through everything else. You're still here. You know,
Exactly.
you've always made it, so you'll make it this time too.
Exactly.
You know,
Just keep on going, man. Yeah, exactly.
keep on, just keep on keeping on. So, what kind of projects are you got coming up on the homestead and in your community this summer? Shifting
Oh man,
gears
right now
because
I'm
I
standing
know.
in.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, right now I'm standing in my garage, which I've just sort of finished up today. Garage slash workshop. I really needed a space like this. Like everything I've made, like my home office, compost toilet, like tool shed, everything. Like I've been doing that out in the sun and the rain, in the rain. Like
Yeah.
if the weather changes, I gotta pack everything up, just put it back in the house. And now I finally got this space where I can sort of make all the other cool stuff. So that's going to be a big one for this year. And then
Absolutely.
improving the access. We got like 700 meters away from the first paved road,
Mm.
which is fine. Like at this time of year, in summer, but
Yeah.
when it's like half a meter of snow and it starts melting, like it gets problematic, so to
Yeah.
say. So I
Absolutely.
just want to get that better, especially like as I'm driving my daughter to kindergarten every morning. So just like no normal stuff for living off
Normal
the grid.
off grid stuff. Yeah, the same stuff I
Yeah,
dealt with for
yeah.
sure. But our place was at the end of a half-mile drive, and then the road, the bad road up from there up to the decent county road was still another couple, 2 or 3 miles, I think, and
Okay, yeah.
uphill. So bad winters. Yeah, there was a couple of
Oh
winters
yeah.
where I had some time, and I wasn't mad about it, but I was stuck at home. But that's fine. I just hiked through the forest in the snow and followed animal tracks and stuff like that. But I know what you mean.
Exactly.
It's a whole different thing when you got to count on yourself to be able to get somewhere. It's you know it's a totally different
Yeah,
lifestyle. And having a workshop
but it's
is
empowering
huge,
too as
dude.
well.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah, man. I really needed this. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I know. It's you got to have a place to work and do things like you said out of the weather. Even if it's nothing but a covering from the rain, you gotta have something.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, it's just basically a timber frame with some like aluminum sheeting, and that's it. Like I don't, I'm not even going to close one of the sides. It's just going to be, just protected from the rain and the sun. That's really all I need.
Yeah, that's exactly how the first one I built was. Yeah, like three-sided, shed uh, or
Exactly. Yeah.
workshop. Yeah, that's good stuff, man. I don't want to keep you too long, but I want to give you opportunity to share anything at all that you would like about your art or your uh, upcoming projects. Like you said, you're working on your album. Is there anything you want to share before we wrap it up today?
No, man, I'm cool. I mean, this was a great talk. I'm really happy we finally got a chance to speak. Like we've been exchanging messages for the past couple of years, man.
Yeah, yeah,
And and finally we get a chance to speak. So I've been really looking forward to this, and thanks for the opportunity. In terms of what I got coming up, well, I still haven't started working on the album. I have some very interesting ideas about it, but as I mentioned earlier, you know, ideas are that's what they are. But we'll see
yeah.
what'll end up happening once I start actually doing it. So I don't really want to give away too much. But hopefully, I think before the end of the year, I already have a couple of songs that I might already release them. Maybe I'll make some videos, things like that. So yeah, just check me out on YouTube and Instagram, and that's where I'll be posting my stuff.
Yeah, I'll have the links, but people need to check it out because it's very you have even if all you do is view, you know, like we're talking about more of a consumer end, you have very interesting things that you share with being the off grid in the solar studio. It's at least to me, I
Thanks,
find
man.
it very interesting, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
I have to also share the same opinion with you. I'm super glad that we finally got a chance to talk and have a conversation, even if this never aired. You know, it's so cool just to talk to you and get to
e-
know you a little better. Because it's,
exactly.
yeah, for sure, man. Dude, I really appreciate you being on. And I'm going to close the show out real quick and then I'll chat to you just for a minute before we go our separate ways. All right, brother?
Sounds good, man. Thanks.
All right, Alexander. Well, that was it. Number 10 of structures, and I really appreciate everyone that has been giving me feedback lately, and it just let me know that the show is something they find value in, and it means a lot because I didn't want to do this just for entertainment or something fun to do. I want it to be something that is encouraging and uplifting and fun and just features the amazing artist that I meet. So thanks to everyone that's been tuning in and giving me feedback and talking to me about it. And stay tuned because I got more interesting ideas and things coming up to kind of evolve from here. So thanks again. I love you all. Peace.